recording is on.
Yo, yo, yo. This is another edition of the Geeky Bros podcast. I am filling in for the intro for Tactics, and I am just Darcy.
And this is Big Geek Umar. How y'all doing today? Well, actually, how are you doing today, Darcy?
Me and Tactics is not going to jump out from the background.
Yes, we unfortunately are missing our boy Tactics today. He is indisposed at the moment, so therefore we Darcy and I are going to be the ones discussing all the geeky news for this week.
Yeah, and try not to bore you with just two of us. I'm kidding.
We're clearly already off our game because we're used to the three-man conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not the one who presses start on the recording, so that's already weird. All right, what's the agenda, Umar?
Okay, so we decided we would take advantage of the fact that Tactics is not here, and since Darcy and I are the resident anime freaks of the group, we decided to go a little anime heavy this time. So what I was thinking we were doing is talk about and review the ever amazing and still excellent that holds up no matter what, Fullmetal Alchemist, and also Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Basically, the entire Fullmetal Alchemist franchise.
Fair. But for me, it's Brotherhood because like I also because I just also recently rewatched Brotherhood and I haven't rewatched the original, so
I gotta say for me, so it was weird because I watched the first FMA. I think I talked about this in a previous podcast when we were talking about dubs versus subs. I watched FMA, the original series, ages ago, like when I was a up and coming anime viewer.
Got you.
Seriously, not like the Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball stuff that we watched on the side.
Yo, Dragon Ball is legit. Sailor Moon is another thing, though.
Actually, I discovered a lot of guys watch Sailor Moon, but they just didn't say anything.
We all watched Sailor Moon out here, okay? There wasn't a lot of anime, and they were cute girls, okay? Like, let's not lie.
I'm just the one who brings it out, and I say that it's normal. Everyone else is like
100%.
Yeah. So anyway, back in the day, I watched FMA, and I was like, "This is the shit." I was blown away. I was heartbroken because I remember the series finale for that show was hella depressing. And then they did that movie. I think it was like something of Shambhala, Conquest of Shambhala, something like that.
Wait, there's a movie?
Oh, there was a movie that was technically the series finale of the first series.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one.
Oh, buddy, I'm sorry.
No, you just don't spoil it. But I'm gonna have to go Google and watch something, or make sure. It's been a long time since I watched the original FMA in general, so I'm not certain if I watched it and I forgot.
It's on Netflix.
Oh, I'm definitely going to check it out later.
Yeah. In terms of the movie, I'm not sure if the movie's on Netflix, but yeah. Anyway, so those I watched I think I watched that like 3 times through. The movie I only watched the one time because I like, no spoilers. I just wasn't a huge fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like it was decent.
Yeah.
But I was coming into Brotherhood with I don't know what they're going to do with this. And when I was going through like the 13 episode mark, I was like, guys, we've seen they're really rushing through this series because in 13 episodes they did like 25. They did what was done in 25, and they were just like skirting through everything. So in my head I was like, this series has nice animation, but it's nothing compared to the first series. And then the rest of the series happened. Yeah. and not only did it take the first one's place as like my number one of just their franchise, but in like all anime, FMA Brotherhood is like among my top favorites.
Yeah, rewatching it recently, I was like, this really stands up.
Yeah.
Like, I love the ability for them to have humor and extremely dark moments. Like,
yeah.
But it's not even just the dark; it's the depth of character that it creates and the bonds amongst the characters. Like when the characters are having these deep moments as the series progress. Everything related to I forget. I'm horrible with names, but like the girl who's the friend of the Eldrick brothers.
Winry?
we had Winry, and everything like even her backstory or her understanding their story and just everything between those brothers. And every time a character gets like onboarded to their history, and they're like, oh, that's what they went through. Oh, I want to help these guys no matter what. Like once people understand them, it's like it's so deep. And that's the thing. It's like I can't believe how much, like, the older you get, the more you feel that even more.
For me, what I found to be rather impressive, because like the first series did that too. It's like they had the stereotypical tropes of the time. Like they obviously took their time with each thing. So like the Lior thing was like 2 episodes. Everything was like a lot more flushed out. And okay, spoilers from this point onwards, because we're going to talk about some like heavy events from this point on. Because I just realized we haven't said anything yet.
I mean, it's been out for a while.
But let's say
I
you're
know,
like,
I know.
yeah. So everyone, audience, we're going to start talking about specifics about Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but we will not talk about any specifics of any kind for the movie, because Darcy hasn't seen it.
Fair.
I got you, bro. So I gotta say, when Shao Tucker and his daughter and the dog still haunts me from the first series. It did, like, honestly, when I watched it in Brotherhood, I was like, that's a nice recap. That's it. But like the pain was from the first series.
Got you.
Same thing with Hughes. I remember I was in complete disbelief when Hughes died in the first series, to the point that I was just like, nah, man, like, this is just a cover. This is just a cover. And then the funeral scene happened, and I was like, oh shit. And then like the daughter's crying, I start tearing up. And then when a Mustang starts crying, I was like, I'm gone. I'm just gone. So yeah, again, the second series kind of like did a nice recap of that in like a decent way. Nothing compared to what was in the first series. So for me, I would say the first 25 episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist still are better than the first 12 to 13 episodes of Brotherhood. But then everything after that point was just so complex, so methodical, so impressive in terms of scale, so outstanding in terms of history and mythology, and then like characterization, and just like how all the pieces just kept, like, it almost did like a Game of Thrones thing where everyone like went outwards and then everyone came back.
Interesting.
But did it, so much better than the ending of Game of Thrones.
So the first time I watched FMA, it was a long time ago. So I don't really truly remember a lot of the differences. I mean, the similarities are easy to remember because I just watched the other one. So it's like, they're pretty much similar scenes, right?
Yeah.
The same scene. But the thing I do remember about the first one, and when I watched it, how I felt was when they got to the latter part where they got to, like, when they got into the seven deadly sins. I don't remember how accurate my memory is on this, but I feel like it felt more twisted, but it also felt like it was more like it didn't make as much sense. And that's the thing that bothered me.
I completely agree.
I felt like they just went on some metaphysical something, and I was like, they went to this whole world bending time something, and I was like, huh? And I still don't understand it. Like you had, because when it was dark and all the seven deadly sins were really getting twisted, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Then they got to this like mind bending thing, and I was like, I think I rewatched a whole episode. Like, and I don't watch stuff twice back to back very often, like rarely. I rewatched the episode. I was like, nah, I don't get it. I still don't understand. What are you saying? Right? Like, I need the Hulk to talk to that woman and show me the timelines. I'm just confused right now. But when I watched the second one, it was so much more better explained that I was like, nope, that's it. I like that. That's the definitive version for me.
Yeah, I definitely say that, because like the first one, I would say like I would say once Dante got involved, like once we started to know who Dante was, and like all of her, like that she was essentially what Father was in the second series. Like, I don't get me wrong, I like the fact that the homunculi were like basically everyone who's ever tried to bring someone back. That's who the homunculi are. Like they're just basically like the failed experiments of people's love
Mm.
and like decision for taboo. That was really like that was
Yeah,
like fucked up.
I actually kind of wish that was in Brotherhood, just because. I mean, I don't mean like exactly how they did it, but that premise, because that premise, like even while watching Brotherhood, I couldn't remember all the details, and think I was subliminally remembering that fact, but I was thinking like they really should make these the failed experiments, because we've seen two people. It would be interesting if we met more people who failed, or hear their backstory and whatnot. And just something interesting about the whole failed experiments turning into homunculi, and then how that is just like it's a consequence that keeps coming back to you. You know what I mean?
And also, like I like the fact that Dante would essentially never have want of a sin. In fact, if anything, she would have too many. But I did like Brotherhood's decision to stray from that in the sense that like they talked about how you can't actually, it can never be done because for example, Ed found out that who he thought he brought back wasn't actually his mom. He brought back just like a creature of his own making,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Not COVID.
Smooth.
But yeah, for me, what I found to be, there was less concise ending and writing for the first one. Don't get me wrong; it still was good. Like, and for my age back then, like I actually do want to rewatch FMA now, because the last time I watched it was probably like 10 years ago.
Same.
Brotherhood, I think I've rewatched as many times as FMA, but that was over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's significantly more clear in my mind. But yeah, FMA, I think I need to rewatch, because I do want to know if, because I remember feeling the same way you do about the first series. It was great, but I did have some, and I didn't follow it totally. And to be honest, I thought I was, because I was, I was in my mid to early 20s. I thought that I was, no, actually my early 20s at that point. I was in my early 20s and I was just like, maybe I don't get stuff. Maybe I need to still like experience life and understand shit. But like now I'm just like, I'm pretty sure I can understand stuff.
I feel like when these shows get to a point where they're referencing, like, say, a mythology from some nation's background. Like sometimes they'll reference Greek mythology, sometimes they'll
Yeah.
reference like Japanese mythology or Chinese mythology or Latin mythology, right? And they do that. If you do that and you make the audience feel like they had to have read the books before you get there, you're failing, right? You
Yeah.
need to explain enough, right? And yeah, you gotta try to find your way to not make it exposition on exposition, but you do have to find your way to explain things. I was watching this is totally random, but I was watching these YouTube videos on fan manga for the One Punch Man series, and the guy was like, they had this point where they had to explain some fourth dimensional god's powers and stuff like that, and like they used the same technique as Naruto. And he's like, yeah, I like how they use that, because like when they explain like a jujitsu, that like how it works, they do this visualization, and I'm like, it is exposition, but it's done in such a fun way that it
Yeah.
just separates itself from the rest of the show. It's like, hold on a second, we're gonna do anime PBS. 1 second, let's get this out of the way, because you're never gonna get this. And at least like they do that. They do a perfect explainer and get you through. And yeah, you can't entangle that into every show, but I mean, you got to find a way, otherwise you lose me. And I felt like that show just lost me at a point, and I was just like, okay, I'm just here for the cool like visuals. Like I felt like I was like a 10-year-old again when you stayed up late and watched that super dark R-rated anime you're not supposed to watch, and you don't get anything. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm just here because it looks good, and I'm hoping a boob pops out. That's it. Like, I'm dumb. That's how I feel now.
Actually, because it was interesting, because so okay, let me ask you some questions now. Which villain would you say like was your favorite in either or?
See, I don't really remember Dante that well, but I do feel like I got a darker, from what I can remember, like this, barely the scenes in my head, a darker tone that felt a little more ominous than Father. But I really like the what was the thing called in the bottle? It was like a hamaka something in the bottle. It wasn't like
yeah, it was like oh
it was
god,
like a
it was
slightly adjusted word from homunculus or homoculi. I feel like
homunculus. Oh man, something in the flask.
but so the thing in the flask. Let's keep it unless you remember later. But the thing in the flask, I really liked. I liked by the time we like got away from it being
dwarf in the flask.
dwarf in the flask. I really liked the dwarf in the flask part of it.
Yes.
I didn't so much like the father. I don't want to say father figure, but I mean the physical figure like that. I didn't like that as much. It's cool, but it was kind of like whatever. But when it came to the dwarf part, one thing I loved about Brotherhood is when certain sins got killed and you got to see them in their original state. Like envy hurt me. This even the second time watching it, when envy it comes to is envy's death, and is that little like salamander creature that is like dying and it's so sad and it's holding on and what's it's holding on to is what's killing it and all this stuff. I'm like, yo, that hurts. Like that really is painful. And I felt like the dwarf had like an element of that. I really liked those because there's something about the human nature that they were explaining that I liked.
So for me, I would say like the villain that was my favorite was probably Pride in the first one and Wrath in the second one.
Oh, you're talking about which particular like homunculus?
No. I was talking about just villain, like any kind of villain. And
Yo,
what?
Yo, surprise! Look at this.
What's going on, yo?
Yo, everybody, we got our tactics back.
Actually, no, I gotta go back to studying, so I'm not staying long. I just want to wish you guys a good show. Thanks for holding it down in my absence, and yeah, man.
Yo, that is dope. And you come in here hella exposed, bro.
Yeah, my bad, my fault.
No, you all good. I was just like, I've never seen you look so white.
The true nature is coming out.
Yo. I gotta say, like, I'm glad we didn't have like a cardboard cutout of you on the side in the corner, because otherwise we would have two tactics.
Yo, that's awesome. Appreciate you coming through, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, don't let me interrupt. Good luck, guys.
Well, actually, while you're here, what are your thoughts on Fullmetal Alchemist?
So that's a wrap on me for today.
That's perfect. That is perfect. I am happy with that. Oh man. You know, I had some I was prepping to say. That's all I can. I don't know how to transition off of that now.
I think I was saying something, but I don't even remember. Okay, let me put this way then. Who is your in both of them? Out of both of them, which was your favorite side character or supporting character?
Are you talking about the villains or just in general?
Just in general.
Supporting or side character? So many good ones.
I'm talking about your top one.
I don't know. Like it's one of these shows where I feel like I kind of like everybody.
Equally?
Like not equally, but like there's so many people I like so much that I can't really put one person over another. Like I want to say like it sounds like a cop out, but I really like the main like the old eldest brother, right? Like I really like him almost more than anybody, or more than anybody. And one of the reasons I like him is because at one point when Winry and not Edward, what's the other one? What's
Alphonse.
Alphonse. Oh yeah. Alphonse. I love Alphonse too. Like I love him. There's a point where he's having a conversation with Winry, and it's about like them not bonding or something like that to some degree. And she's like, someone identifies with him that's like, it's in his action. His love is in his action, in whatever, and his quietness at certain times where he doesn't express things. I love that aspect about him because it's like he's not going to dwell on it, he's going to act on it. I love that fact. But there's so many good characters. to love.
For me, I would say like my top favorite supporting character, it would have to be the teacher, their teacher, Izumi.
So good.
She is just so dope.
Yeah. I also really love what's his name's older sister from
Olivier
from the wall. Oh, she is amazing.
Honestly, like when they said like Armstrong's sister, I was like, that one from the first one? Oh. And then you find out he's like, no, he got another sister. He's a middle child.
Yeah, she's spectacular. Like every scene, how she controls stuff, how her men like are just like how she controls that whole, like all the guys, how they act, like I love that part.
The Northerners, yeah. I would say like so going back, and I just remember where I ended off before our tea interruption, which is very welcomed. So I was saying that I liked Pride/Wrath. I love his character because like basically a swordsman who just is like unparalleled with like the perfect eye. That's awesome. But to be honest, I think I'm gonna have to rechange that. I think Pride from Brotherhood is by far my favorite villain because while he's terrifying and his powers are like redonkulous, he's also the most perfect representation of what his sin is, in the fact that he's just like, he even has pride amongst other homunculi.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ironically, I kind of think he's my least favorite, but I don't dislike him.
Envy's my least favorite.
The thing is like I don't like Envy and I love Envy. Like that's how I feel about Envy. Like because when it came to Envy's death, I felt for Envy, and the rest of the time I hated Envy. like I don't know why I feel so conflicted about Envy because like I hated Envy, got to the very end, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad, and it was like how it's like 95% of the time I hated you, and then 5% of the time I'm like I hurt for you as much as I hurt for a hero dying. Like
I wonder if there's like a psychological aspect to that, like if someone could write a paper on people because each of the deaths of the homunculi in Brotherhood were rather poignant.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that has some sort of, if you have like a reaction to it, if it has some sort of relevance to that.
I feel like Lust is the one that was super underutilized in Brotherhood. Like she was just kind of like she died quickly. I don't feel like her death was, yeah, but it wasn't poignant. Like it didn't tie back to the premise of her character. And speaking of that,
maybe another character it could.
Maybe it could, but I feel like it's a harder stretch compared to the examples of like how Envy died, where it's like it's such a spectacle around that death, and not in terms of the visual, but the emotional aspect of it.
Well, let's see. Like Gluttony got eaten itself by Pride. Pride was. What happened to Pride? Pride eventually became a child again, but I'm trying to remember how he lost all its power. I think Greed was taken by Father.
Pride absorbed by Father?
No. I think Pride was running out of power.
Oh, yeah. No, ran out of power and broke.
Yeah. And Lust got burned to death. And yeah. Greed was also very interesting. But anyway, yeah. So, well, I guess we've answered that stuff. So, for me, I would say that in terms of endings, again, I'm completely in agreement with you. Brotherhood was where it was at for me. I felt that it was kind of difficult for me to get my head around back in the day over FMA's ending. In terms of main villains, even though Father was less. Yeah, I still prefer Father over Dante. I like Dante a lot, but like for her, she creeps me out. Father, he more was someone arrogant to be defeated. So it's like he's less to be feared and more to overcome. Dante actually creeped me the fuck out.
I prefer either to be really creeped out by a villain or to be really enamored with their like intelligence or their premise. Like Thanos isn't like the most intelligent. He's not dumb. He's just not like the Joker where you're like surprised at the amount of planning.
You can't keep up with him.
You can't keep up with him. You can keep up with Thanos. You know exactly what he's going to do. It's fairly rudimentary, but the whole overwhelming power and his premise of his argument, I'm like blown away by. I just felt like Father was kind of like, if everything else wasn't built up around Father, by the time you got to like really seeing Father, you would have been like, okay, this guy's just like what? Like he's just kind of plain for me. Everything else around him made the story great. Him on his own would be like if you had only two characters, him and the other character, he wouldn't give you much. So
I don't know. I found the Father to be rather because the thing is, like, while his plan, like, at first you had to his plan wasn't easily, like, how many people do you know are going to try to steal the power of God?
Yeah. I'm not saying the plan was good. I'm just saying the actual portrayal of the character, just
except for when he was in the Flask. You loved him in the Flask.
I loved him in the Flask.
Gotcha.
It's something about that pipsqueak voice and communication and the whatever. But when it was in Father, it was just so blah for me. But it wasn't like, but the show was so good and everything else that like it didn't matter to me because he didn't need to upstage everybody else in terms of performance. I'm just saying, like, as a performer, it wasn't like Father came on and I was like, you know, like when Thanos comes in the room, you're like, oh, like immediately everything's like, hold up. Like we're all paying attention. Like everything is like that, right? You know, when Heath Ledger Joker comes in the room, you're like everything's eyes on it. When this guy comes in the room, I could easily put my attention somewhere else if he doesn't do something that surprises me.
Yeah, I would say that Dante did that for me. Like when she came into the room, I'm like, oh shit! Like what is she gonna do? With Father, he just seemed, because he was so unemotional and felt so above it all. It kind of takes away, like, because the thing is, like with the Joker or with Dante, and also with even with Thanos, you get where you know there's something you don't know about them. You know that there's things that there's mystery in them. You can't foresee what there's going to be. With Father, you know he's a powerhouse, and so therefore you need to be like on your game and ready to, like, almost like it's purely physical. With Thanos, there's a little bit of mind games, but like also he's just unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like he's just like completely unstoppable, but at the same time he's strategic about it too. It's not like he just throws things at you and you can't do anything about it. He also, like, he has things coming at you at the side as well.
Yeah.
With the Joker, you don't know shit what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And with Dante, I found that, like, while her plan was to, like, obviously create a Philosopher's Stone and also to keep herself young and all that stuff, you didn't know how she was going to go about it because she constantly was using people. Father was kind of having people use other people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. One thing that I loved about Fullmetal Alchemist that's been on my mind since watching it again is the whole concept of equivalent exchange. Because I don't know, there's just something to that give and take and everything that has just been sticking with me. So I'm just like switching off the villain thing because it's like it's a pop in my head right now.
No. Like, so, like, what about equivalent exchange is the thing that, like, attached itself to you?
I don't know. Like, it kept popping up in different parts of my life where, like, certain things would come up and it just, like, this made sense. It was also related to, I mean, I don't know how to put my finger on it. Like, I don't have like a very specific thing at the moment, but I loved that premise where they just can't do anything. And you have to take something to give something. There's like a science aspect to it. There's a magic aspect to it. But there's something kind of related. Like the whole show has these, like, 7 deadly sins, which relates back to humanity. And
one would even argue religion.
Yes. Yes, definitely as well. Right. And mythology. And the equivalent exchange feels like it's in that. Right. Like it's I'm not saying the religion part, but it's in the whole premise of, like, humanity. Right. Like we don't just make metal. We take something and we convert it. Right. Yeah. We don't just get angry. We take an emotion and we convert it. We're always, like, changing and switching of energies and
cause and effect.
Yeah. And I love that aspect of it, especially because it's like, yeah, it creates limitations, but it also creates, like, it doesn't make it just, like, unbelievable like things just happen and they can be explained away. That whole premise makes everything have to revolve around it in the story.
So you like the aspect of balance then?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's balanced, but it's just, some shows just will give you stuff without really an explanation, right? Like, you know, and sometimes it's fine. Like sometimes Dragon Ball is like there is no limit, and that's cool if the show is kind of built around that. But sometimes you get shows where it's like they can just kind of do stuff, and it doesn't feel like it has a premise, and they don't really tell you that it's going to be like it's all about no limits,
Yeah.
and then it just becomes like they just kind of pull stuff out of their ass while it's as they're writing the show because they didn't set up these limits. I don't know. It's something I've really liked about the show.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely like I like the fact because like in the beginning you're kind of like, oh well, they can't just make whatever they want, and like kind of like in like Harry Potter when you can do transfigurations,
Yeah.
and then like, but like there is a limit, but it's kind of like it's a limited limit. So yeah, I definitely see what you mean.
Yeah. Speaking of Harry Potter, since you brought it up, let's slide
Yeah.
into the second topic being
Mhm.
the Fantastic Beasts franchise.
I'm down for that. Let's do it.
So as you know, I recently watched the second one, which I forget what the part of the second title is. What is it? Fantastic Beasts : something.
And where to find them.
And where to find them. Yeah, I just was like, Fantastic Beasts 2, let's go watch it. So first off, a lot of people didn't love it for some reason, and I kind of want you to talk about that.
They didn't like the second one. Well,
that's what I mean. The second film.
Okay, so all right, so the thing about the Fantastic Beasts is like the first movie was relatively well accepted.
Mm-hmm.
There were some people who were like, I would say studios and regular audiences were kind of not a big fan of Newt Scamander as a main, which what we've talked about in a previous podcast about empathetic male heroes.
Are you talking about regular moviegoers who just kind of watch things and don't know the history, or are you talking about regular hardcore Harry Potter fans?
I'm leaving the Harry Potter fans out of this one. I'm saying the studios, the audiences, and the critics. There was kind of like a mild consensus that he wasn't very pronounced as a leading man. They're like, he would have been cool as a side character, but like he shouldn't be front and center sort of thing.
Where's our Vin Diesel, right?
Yeah, it kind of. Or where's our Harry Potter? Where's the chosen one? Where's someone who's a little bit more like oomph? And that's where the discussion of in a previous podcast where we talked about empathetic male leads. So when the second movie came out, the second movie is where Harry Potter fans were like, "Fuck, what are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
And this had nothing to do with J.K. Rowling's controversy because that was well before her controversy came out. And that controversy just keeps on going controversial. Anyway, she should really. It's interesting that a writer who's like well known for a writer just doesn't know when to shut up.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe she has good editors to stop those run-on sentences.
Or run-on essays about things that no one wants to hear about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that for me, I am definitely the minority in the Harry Potter geeky fantasy realm who actually didn't mind, if not slightly enjoyed, Fantastic Beasts 2. I really enjoyed Fantastic Beasts 1. I kind of enjoyed Fantastic Beasts 2. A lot of people who like the fans were just like, Fantastic Beasts is like a franchise that's at war with its mother base. It's like, we're going to redo things. And I will admit, J.K. Rowling, oddly enough, has created some timeline issues and some last minute changes to characters that are long-standing and beloved. Why she's doing that, I think that has to do with the fact that the studios are pressuring her to kind of make it less Newt Scamander focused and more actiony badass style, which is what they're used to. So I think Fantastic Beasts, because the thing is, the originally Fantastic Beasts was supposed to be a 5-movie franchise.
Got you.
With the ending being where Dumbledore and Grindelwald, aka Johnny Depp, have their big blowout.
Gotcha.
And then and then everything goes back to normal until Voldemort comes. So that was the original plan. I can clearly see that the studios were very nervous about Newt as a main guy, and also I think once that nervousness kind of showed a little bit in the like sales and criticisms and box office results, they kind of put pressure on her to be like, okay, get through the story quickly, like get to the good parts, get to the big things. Let's not dilly-dally too much. And I think that's the result of why the Fantastic Beasts 2 was as criticized as it was, because while I enjoyed it, I was definitely aware she was shoving exposition in. Like there was a lot going on in that movie, and not a lot of it was explained. And it kind of was like, it wasn't even made to the situation that it can be explained later. It's not like they didn't make a lot of cliffhangers. She just like wrapped up a whole bunch of storylines within the movie while also doing the main plot and like kind of like throwing you the background information at you at the same time. So I was kind of like, this really needed to be like stretched out into the second movie. But I'm thinking she's getting kind of crushed on that front.
Interesting. It's funny because like, yeah, this could be off from the fact that I'm like interested in the empathetic aspect, interested in the overall Harry Potter tone and world and stuff like that, but I've never been like really paying depth of attention. Especially Harry Potter came out when we were like young, like in high school or earlier, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the stuff you're just like, it's great. You don't really care. And so I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was overall
the first or second one.
Second one. I recently watched it. I actually really enjoyed it. I definitely felt like there were certain parts that were rushed, but I actually felt overall it was a fairly well-constructed film. Like it didn't have giant like things that stood out to me like as a filmmaking. Just forget about like the specifics to that story, but like I'm like, oh, it didn't feel like it was missing giant pieces. And then you tell me all stuff, and I'm like, what did I miss? What am I not paying attention to?
I would say it's the fact that you're not a Harry Potter fan. The fact that you're kind of like a Harry Potter enthusiast.
Yeah, lightly. Nowhere near the Hufflepuff's camp at all.
Newt is Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I said I'm not there. Of course he is. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Actually, I really love Newt, and it's part of the reason why I probably enjoy the film so much is just watching his character and how it plays out. Like I really love, yes, partly because of the conversations we've had about empathetic leads, but just like watching his dynamic with like Dumbledore,
Jacob.
like
interesting. I loved his interactions with Jacob.
I do enjoy his interaction with Jacob. I feel like I got a lot of that in the first one, so it was good to continue that. But his interaction with Dumbledore in the second one really were beneficial for me because there are just scenes where like you could play it up and it was like, oh, Newt's gonna step up and put the foot down, and it was just like the way he interacted was totally the opposite of what you anticipate and got the same results. And I love that fact, right? It's like they get all the same things done, but he doesn't portray any of the typical tropes that you anticipate in a male lead. So I like that breaks your expectations and it makes it more fun and interesting. It's just like when they also identify that like Dumbledore is he's gay, right? Like in that film, and his interaction with him about that is just kind of like, so I found this thing. And, right, and it's like, this is what I think this is, right? It's like this little pact between the two you guys, and like obviously not in the tone that I'm saying it. And it's like, yep, can you break it? Right? It's like I love when people interact on things that are like, are not for everybody. Like how to put this? When people interact with people in movies that are gay, and it's like, oh, you're gay. Oh,
right.
And it was kind of like, it was just like, so what do we do? Right? Like, it's not even a thing. It's just
normalizing it.
Yeah. It's like, this is what I think it is. Yep. Okay, cool. So what do we do about it? Like, it's like, there's no interaction. And you especially expect that from a character who sees monsters as like creatures that are just aren't understood yet.
You see, you basically see monsters as something to be protected, not to be something to be feared.
Yeah, and so he doesn't, like with people, he just like, people are people, they do what they do. He doesn't really understand a lot of them, but he never would judge them either. And
I wanted to ask, what was your thoughts of the first Fantastic Beasts compared to the second one?
I don't know, like in some ways I like the second one for maybe some of the reasons that the studio changed it in terms of like some of the action and the pacing being a little bit faster than a normal Harry Potter film. But I also remember enjoying the first one quite a lot. I felt like there may be a few parts I felt were slow, but
Ah, I see.
at the same time I didn't dislike it because I think I liked Newt so much.
So you like data dumps and faster paces.
Say that first part again.
Data dumps.
Data dumps.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you say data dumbs, and I'm like, what are you calling me, boy?
No.
like, don't make me have to comb through this webcam.
No. And I was saying like basically you like getting like a ton of information thrown at you.
No, I don't like that. I just like the pacing to feel like
A little speeder.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, it depends on a film, depends on a story. Sometimes you can have slow pacing and stuff like that. Sometimes it depends if like you feel like you're not getting anywhere and you're also not learning a lot quickly.
Okay.
Like they're going slow to show you things that are really just for like hardcores, like you're just spending time doing Easter eggs that don't really satisfy the person who doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, for instance, like you go back into like original Harry Potter's, right? Like the first one, and you're exploring the world and you're learning about how you get the wand and all these kinds of things. That could be considered slow if you know what's coming next, right? But it's world building, and that's always really fun. Great world building is always fun. Movies need to do way more of that on a regular basis.
Agreed.
But I don't know, if you're setting up something that's like really big and theoretical and you're not really incorporating it into something that feels like it's moving and you're just kind of like talking to the audience, but you're trying to like do it in a non-exposition way, but it's taking forever. And it's like, what is this leading to for me?
I would say for me, I like the first one more. It was more of I would say, a well-paced story, which I felt didn't have too much thrown at you, and also it kind of really focused on Jacob and Newt. But also at the same time, like I liked the ending of it because like I wasn't a big fan of the ending of the second one. But like the first one. First of all, I loved Colin Farrell. I think Colin Farrell should have stayed as the main villain as opposed to Johnny Depp taking over. I didn't like Johnny Depp. Granted, there was a lot of controversy regarding him, and I had my views on that. But in terms of the actual like acting he did, I'm not saying it was bad acting, but I'm not saying it was good acting. He was just acting. Like it was just meh for me. But like in the first one, Colin Farrell had me. I was really into him in terms of like the villain stuff that he was doing and how he was going about it. Like I believed him. Johnny Depp just felt like a dude who was there. So
I enjoyed Johnny Depp in this film.
Okay, fair enough. I just also what I really liked about the first one was it was a tragedy, which I guess that's another reason why personally I find the first one better than the second one was because the death of the main villain in the first one, which was undone in the second movie, but the death of the main bad or the Prudence, who's now going to become the Flash, his destruction was actually seen as a tragic, like a failure, and I actually really resonated with that. In this one, it's kind of like Grindelwald releases all this fire, kills a whole bunch of people, and they all have to work together to stop it. Cool. They did kill Lita Lestrange, who was like that big love interest for Newt that was like talked about in the first one, who's like into his, who's like dating or engaged to his brother. But like, I really liked her character, but they like really ran through that character fast. Like everything about her was rather interesting, but like it all got tied up within a movie. That should at least been a 2-movie arc. So like that's what I'm saying. Like the things like that were the things that like I really liked the elements. I love the whole thing between Jacob and Newt. The fact that they're both going to Paris to go find the people that they're in love with. Though I gotta say, Jacob deserves better. His girl was cray.
Yeah, yeah. Let me say this because you're saying this in point, and it made me think. I agree with you about the love interest being too short.
And
Here's the
Craig.
thing. I would say this is like if you had spread some of these things out over two movies, I wouldn't be mad as long as they didn't make it feel slow in any kind of way.
Agreed.
Though I will say on the flip side, though, considering let's say studio interference is the reason,
Yeah.
what they were able to accomplish in one film, I wasn't. Nothing stood out to me too much as like I'm upset about it. Whereas you get some films where you're like, "Yo, what did they do to Justice League?" You know what I'm saying? Like, where like nothing stood out to me where I was like, "Y'all just failed at making film." Like,
Darcy, okay, so it's funny you should say that because I will say that you and I know Justice League and comics a lot better. I think Harry Potter fans would disagree with you and think that this is their Justice League.
yeah, I hear you in terms of I could understand what they would mean like, yeah, story wise and these types of things about the actual like mythos and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, like Justice League did something that really upset me, which was it fundamentally messed up like parts of filmmaking, right? Like you know when a film
Okay.
condenses stuff and they just make mistakes in filmmaking, right? Like
Not so much story and characterization, but like actual film. Okay, I'm
on
with you.
on top of that, like it didn't fail at filmmaking. It may have because you had set so much up in the first one in terms of story, the mythos, and the world, and then you condense it. Yeah, you rushed it. But if let's say this was an independent film, and
Yeah.
however ability you were able to do that, right? And you didn't have a, or you maybe it was like two film arc, right? Like, like the whole thing, right? The first film, they didn't have anything that would need it to go beyond the second film. This film would have felt like cool. It was a completed film. It felt overall well done. It completed the stuff from the first one, and great, we're done. Right? Like it didn't feel like, yeah, you just didn't edit properly here. You didn't do these things properly. You completely switched up your soundtrack design and sound design from the first one to the second one. Your look and feel was different from the first one to the second one.
I see what
Like,
you're saying now.
like those kinds of things where you're like, you take me out of the world and you make all these changes, but you take me completely out of the world and just like change it to be something that it's not. Yeah, it's condensed. It maybe is a Cole's Notes version, but it's still the same world, same story, same characters. And I didn't feel like Newt got turned into like Goku, and you're like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't flip upside down. It make no sense.
Okay, yeah, I would say that in terms of story, and timeline, and characterization, I would say Harry Potter fans would massively disagree with you on in terms of like that aspect. But in terms of filmmaking, I definitely see what you mean. And yeah, I would say that they've remained consistent in terms of filmmaking throughout all the films. So like that didn't get taken away.
Yeah, I'll just look at all those people yelling at me and be like, just go back to Hufflepuff, leave me alone.
Probably got some Slytherins coming at you too now.
Yeah, no one needs no Slytherins in their life.
No offense to all our Slytherin audience members.
Yeah, sure.
My man's being a Gryffindor right now. He's like, I am on top of the world. I can say whatever I shit.
Yeah, you know how I am. Gryffindor all day.
So, you prefer Johnny Depp over Colin Farrell?
Oh, I'm not saying I preferred him.
Okay,
Though I will say that this is my poor memory. I don't remember the Colin Farrell character as much, and I would say partly that's because I haven't watched it in a couple years, and partly because maybe I just don't really remember him that well.
Okay.
Which means it may not have gripped me as well as it should have.
Interesting.
One thing I would say that I haven't really been a huge fan of between the first and the second as a character is the Ezra Miller's character. Like,
to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of him either. I was fine that he was there, but like I that's what I was saying. Like I prefer him to be like he died in the first movie. Let that be the end of it. I didn't like this, like, oh, he's Dumbledore's relative and whatever shit like that. And also, he's still being his whiny, crappy self.
I will say that when it was turned out to be Dumbledore's relative, what was the other film? Oh yeah, it was like the Last Jedi film that we just got, where it was like, oh, I was like really, like I don't know enough about Harry Potter, but that felt like some Star Wars bullshit. I was like, yeah, these motherfuckers are not related, okay?
Actually, it's funny you should say that, because there have been some criticisms that, so like the sequel trilogy in Star Wars is at war with itself and the rest of the franchise. That's what people feel about this. Excuse me. About the Fantastic Beasts franchise. It's at war with the rest of Harry Potter.
Yeah, I mean, like, like next we're gonna be like, and he's a second cousin to Palpatine. I'm like, he actually looks like he's more related to Palpatine than he does like Dumbledore.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, it doesn't make sense. Like, Dumbledore's what, like in his 60s at this point? He has like a 20-year-old.
60s? Oh damn, he looked good for 60s. I thought he was like 47.
Jude Law's probably in his 50s or something.
No, I know, but like, I'm like, also before we jump off of this, how are they going to resolve the fact that Jude Law's character looks like he comes out of a GQ magazine, and then the other version is wearing a cloak?
Also, like, how did he get so like? He's also wearing like a very, like, he's been known for wearing very ostentatious outfits and robes, but he wearing like a 3-piece suit all the time. That's like, like very dark colors.
Yo, I'm a fan of the way Jude Law's character looked in this film. Like, I would be fine if that was actually how he was, and he's older and he's just like a GQ kind of dude and he's like really dope with the kids, but he wasn't that. So
I would say that I had a little bit of issues with his outfit, because for me, the whole thing about Dumbledore is like, he's supposed to be ostentatious.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's supposed to also be like still like really with the kids. I loved Jude Law's acting and characterization of Dumbledore. He did a great job being the very sagely but also warm type of person who also, you can tell, is like has a lot of things going on. I didn't like the fact that they kind of killed his like, because at this time period, like, technically speaking, he had been wearing like really red ostentatious suits, and that's when he met Voldemort for the first time. Like, by this point, he's already met Voldemort.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm kind of like,
I know we're nearing the end here, but I gotta throw something out here. You know what I would have loved if they'd done this film? Did they introduce Dumbledore in the last film, or was it this film?
No, they talked about him. Then
that's what I thought. You know what I would have loved is if when we saw him, he's all 3-piece suited, and then when you see him at the castle, the first time he goes to the castle, you see him like just wave his wand and his outfit shifts as he moves in, and he's like living 2 different lives, like visually, like he's got this like persona for the kids, but when he's out in the world, he's just like dapper down. You're like, oh, yo, you're like they'll never know it's him, or if they do recognize him, like, teach what?
That's hilarious.
That would have been wicked.
He's like all ostentatious and like super red and like all this like purple and like long beard, and then like he goes into the Muggle world and he's like this like GQ magazine guy, and everyone's like, damn.
Yo, because like I'm like if they could, as they continue this franchise, if hopefully they do, because I still want more, but like
they have to, now.
They have to like explain that transition at some point, or otherwise it's just gonna be like, well, I mean, they don't, but then it's like all this stuff off screen where you're like, I just need a story to tell me how his mind shifted, because that's a very different look.
They're not. No, I know they're not going to, like, man. Honestly, like, look at in the X-Men. Michael Fassbender's last performance as Magneto was chronologically 10 years before Ian McKellen's first performance as like Magneto. He aged quickly in those 10 years, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was gonna say, but I'm like, I guess we are in that realm where the issues in X-Men, the issues in Star Wars, and the issues in Harry Potter all kind of like line it up together here. We're like, you're like, this don't make any sense. Yeah, but they'll pay for the tickets.
But let me put it this way: this is exactly the problem for comic book readers.
Yeah,
we've had that a lot, and it's interesting that the movies have now, like, for all these franchises, the movies have actually reflected the issues that people have had. It's like X-Men, how many times have they rebooted that? Batman, how many times have they rebooted that? Spider-Man, how many times have they rebooted that? So much so that they can do a multiverse for all these franchises.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's always money. That's what it always comes down to. Even in the comic book world, right? It's like, we're not making this, enough of that, enough of this. You know what's interesting? Totally random fact, but I was watching today a kind of like review thing about Blade, and I forgot that
back in the day.
Yeah, and how it like restarted the respect to Wesley Snipes in the Blade film, really keeping superheroes alive, because that came off of the heels of like Batman Forever, or not Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. Like, it was the same year as Batman and Robin. So thank you, but he was up for playing Black Panther. I totally forgot that. Totally random.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'm just giving respect overall to Wesley Snipes and that film, because honestly, we might not have had nothing. Like, Marvel was in trouble, and that film kind of kept things around. So
I would say for me, I recently rewatched the first Blade movie. Still solid. I mean, the ending still kind of gets kind of weird, but it could have been a lot weirder from the deleted scene for like the unused ending.
Yeah, I saw that.
But, like, I really like. And also, what happened to Stephen Dorff? I know he's got a new movie coming out right now, but Stephen Dorff kind of fell off the wagon there.
Is that the director?
Embattled. It's a UFC.
No. I mean, is it the director?
Oh no, the Stephen Dorff was the main villain. He was Deacon Frost.
Oh, Deacon Frost guy. Yeah, no idea. Yeah, cool. Embattled.
Anyway,
all right.
Yeah. So,
I think we should wrap it up there.
I think so too. I think we've naturally come to a conclusion. Well,
yeah, absolutely.
Everyone, thank you for watching our unique Style of the Geeky Bros podcast. And hopefully next week we will have our boy Tactix with us. He's just getting some studying done today. And Darcy, you want to finish this off?
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing really else left to say. I'm out of ideas. I don't know how to do this outro. So this is the Geeky Bros podcast. I am your boy. Nope, just Darcy. Not Tactix.
The flow is gone. And this is Big Geek Umar. Live long and prosper, y'all. Please like and subscribe, and don't judge us for this issue.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.